This one is for the HAIC, meaning Head African in Charge, of the album Black First. You know who you are, but I'm not saying names right now because it ain't nobody else's business. But this message is specifically for you. However, this was the best way to give you this message without anybody else knowing. And this message is also for other guys that are in your situation. When men find that they generally have good character traits, but they're still not getting the attention of women, then they'll do what you do, and they will look inward and they'll also look outward. And I'll tell you that when it comes to this, there are some smart things to do and then there are some dumb things to do. The smart thing to do, which is good, is to ask guys who have been successful with women. Now, I'm going to preface all of this and qualify all of what I'm going to tell you by letting you know now that as a Muslim, I'm only allowed to promote marriage. Marriage, yes. Dating and womanizing, no. I'm not allowed to promote those things, but everything that people think we don't believe in inside of a marriage, we do actually believe in and we promote, and it's good. We all for it. So I want to point out that what I'm going to tell you is a way to get the right advice and a way to avoid the wrong advice. You can choose which advice you want to listen to, but here I can help you with the criteria about what you know if they really know what they're talking about or they don't know. One way you can tell is this. Do not take the advice of spiritually minded women, because they always will tell you to do what what you decided you will not do. They say, just wait, she's going to come along. Just wait. Nope. Don't wait. What you did was you looked at yourself and you took stock of you and you took stock of your circumstances. And it didn't sound to me like you were beating up on yourself, but it did sound to me like you were trying to take an honest stock of your circumstances so that you could point to what women would pick and what they would not pick. That's okay. It's all right to just take an honest look at your circumstances so that you'll know. And be fair about it, and be understanding about it. That's not wrong, and that's not self-effacing, and it's not self-insulting. But you notice that when you did that, the women could not understand that you weren't really beating yourself up per se. You may feel doubts, but the women could not understand that you weren't mentioning this to beat up on yourself. You were simply trying to say these are the circumstances. What you could control and what you can't control. You were trying to point out and say, this is not what women are picking. So keep in mind, now somebody said passport. That is true. Yes. But you notice that a lot of the women were saying, no, there's a woman right here in the U.S. for you, just for you. That's a load of crap. There might be, but still, she's probably not going to warrant the combination of circumstances, even if she doesn't blame you for them because they're not all in your control. Just like we see women with circumstances we don't want, and we don't blame them because they're not in a woman's control, but we don't want that set of circumstances. It's the same thing. And you were mature enough to realize this. You did not simply say, well, I'm definitely great and grand and I'm deserving and I shouldn't have any trouble and there's something wrong with the women. You didn't do that. If you had done that, then these same women were saying, well, maybe you need to take a look at yourself, because then they would have taken it as an attack on them. So understand this. Whichever way you go with this, the women are going to tell you to go the other way. So you got to keep in mind that. Some women are just brutally honest. And you can ask them about that, but you know who those women are. But when they give you that super spiritual advice about just wait and she's going to come along, God's going to send her, don't believe it. Because a lot of women have not faced the fact that logically speaking, mathematically speaking, there aren't enough men to go around unless these women start to believe in polygamy. If they can accept polygamy, there are enough men and responsible men to go around. But if they can't tolerate polygamy, there are not enough men, period, responsible or irresponsible, for every woman to have her one man to herself. Not mathematically possible. Ain't gonna happen. And they can't face this. They're still, despite these numbers that just don't add up, cannot face the fact that they will not get specifically that. So we can't afford to take women's advice, unfortunately, not because they're liars, but because they can't explain very well what it is that they're looking for. Even after you said these are the things they're not looking for, they can't explain that okay, yeah, actually, we're not looking for this set of circumstances. They cannot understand that. But see, you a man, and you coming from the standpoint of a man. What's real is real, and what's not is not. And it's not necessarily to be mean to anybody or to blame people for what they don't control, but you want to take a stock of the reality, inventory of the actual reality, which is good. That's what you're doing. And by doing that, you're right, man. So, no. They may mean well, and that's good that they mean well. So I'm not telling you to not appreciate them at all. I'm just saying that the same way that everyone who speaks Arabic cannot teach me how to speak it, just because they can speak it correctly, women cannot teach you how to speak their language just because they can speak it correctly. There's a difference between speaking the language correctly and explaining to someone else how to speak it correctly. And ironically, with romance, it's the same thing. With mate selection, it's the same thing. I mean, we men can tell women better than women can tell us. You know, women know what they want, but they can't necessarily tell you what it is they want, because women don't always know everything that they want. We're not aware of this, but they don't know everything that they want. Women actually will tell you what they know, but they can't tell you the parts that they don't know. They can't tell you what their subconscious wishes are. It's impossible for them to do that because they are subconscious. And a lot of what women want is subconscious. They're wired. Their tastes are a little bit different from each other's, but women are wired. They're wired to like certain things and not like other things, and they're not always aware of it. So that being said, and as a matter of fact, it is the most primitive parts of a woman's brain that is active when she is picking the men that she likes. It's not the forefront of the brain, the logical center. It's the primitive parts of their brains that are active in this. And they can't override those things. I'm not blaming them per se. It's just not something they can override unless they practice doing it, like anything else. You smart, man. Don't let them take that from you. What you do, what we all want to do is this, and this works for me. Now, again, I'm promoting marriage, but I tell you, what works to help men become successful womanizers is also what works to help them marry the women that they would like to marry. You can ask men who are either happily married or men who are successful womanizers. You can ask them. Now, I don't mean men who've been through a bunch of marriages and divorces, but you can ask men who are either married to more than one, which is polygamous, and you may not meet them out there where you live, but you can also ask men who are successful womanizers. Not so that you can womanize, but what works for one, I hate to say it, actually does work for many. And you can learn the individual differences, but to get your foot in that door, yes, what works for one works for many. Here's the proof. Women from time immemorial have been involved in competing for the same few men, no matter how many men are out there and available. That's just something that they do. They will compete for the same few men. You can take a scenario, you can take America, for instance, where adult males in general are already outnumbered. Then you weed out the irresponsible and leave only the responsible men, and you can see that these women are competing still for the attorneys, the physicians, the millionaires. You can still see them doing this, and they won't stop. What does that tell you? But there are other men who don't have these things, but they just know how to get in a woman's head. Maybe they got a gift and they discovered it, or maybe they learned about watching women, or maybe their own mothers were always being ran game on, and they learned from the guys that ran game on their own mothers. Whatever the case was, they just learned how to run certain games. And so you talk to men who are successful at this, and what they tell you, you can then use to marry a woman you want to marry. It worked for me 2 times. But when those women tell you don't do anything, just sit back, just wait, or just go to the gym, you're dealing with you're dealing with advice that's not really going to help you at all. You want to get braces? Go ahead if you can. But right now you're working part-time, and I'm sure they're not bumping you up to full-time. And, right now you got to worry about transportation. So right now you got a lot of these things you got to look at. You're not, you got to look at, you got to improve your transportation. So before you can do anything about glasses and get a smile that you want, you got to look at these other more pressing things. And of course, that takes money. And let's be honest, black men in this country were brought here specifically to have less money than everybody else. So that's not necessarily all your fault. It may not be your fault, even 1%. But just understand, too, that when you take care of the circumstances you can fix, you still are just going to have to look for the women who can tolerate the circumstances that could not be changed. And that's where they come in. You came in already for the circumstances. You came in already doing what you could do. And the first thing you could do was take an honest inventory of the circumstances that are surrounding you. That was the first thing you could do. After that, you fix the ones you can. Then you can start looking at these women and saying, you just going to have to tolerate X, Y, and Z if I have to tolerate any of your imperfect circumstances or your own personal imperfections. But hey, look, if you can't tolerate them, then I ain't got to tolerate yours. But in the meantime, yeah, you did what you could. So no, at this point, one thing you got to do is, even if you don't take my advice, fine, don't take the super spiritual sit and wait advice of these ladies either. Just because you're admitting your circumstances aren't right doesn't mean you're beating yourself down. So don't let them come at you with that. When you fix the ones you can fix, you'll feel better. Believe you me. And the good thing is that black women are the ones that you like. That's what you like. You like black women. I'm with you on that. I like them. I like black women too. But the good news is that they are some of the most race loyal when it comes to dating. They may be hard on brothers, but they don't too often leave brothers for non-black men. And if they do, most of them won't leave for a white guy. So that's the good thing. So anyway, man, I hope that this helps out. Best of luck getting married, of course, because that's what I'm allowed to promote. And sidestep that sit and wait super spiritual advice you get. If there are women that you know and you can trust to be brutally honest, then yeah, sure. You know them and you trust them because you know them better than I do. But when they come with you with that pat advice that sounds like something a pastor told them when they were teenagers or young adults, scrap it right off the bat. Best of luck, black man.